Joining us right now to weigh in on what this visit could bring in terms of U.S.-Turkish relations is retired General, Fox News military analyst, General Jack Keane. General, it's always a pleasure. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you, Marie.
So Turkey's president is calling his visit a new beginning for relations. How do you see it? And then I want to get your take on the Turkish fight, on the fighters that we are arming in Syria.
Yeah, well, I think, Maria, you know, when we really look at this thing, it's coming into better focus now. We're at a strategic divergence with Turkey. I mean, Erdogan is moving towards authoritarian rule, almost getting close to a dictatorship. He sees Turkey in a way that's going to challenge us because he wants to spread Islamism throughout the Middle East and Africa. And as such, he's moving closer into the orbit of Russia and Iran. And also, he's supporting the radical Islamists inside Syria. And those are major policy issues that President Trump will have to deal with. And as you mentioned in the introduction, the problem we have is with the Syrian Kurds. We are arming the Syrian Kurds, and we have made up our minds that tactically they make the most sense, and I understand that, in terms of taking down Raqqa, which is the capital of the caliphate of ISIS inside Syria. But the problem with the Syrian Kurds, and where I disagree with U.S. policy, is that the Syrian Kurds, while militarily make sense, politically make no sense because they cannot occupy Arab lands. The political end state makes no sense. And when you're conducting military operations, you have to ask yourself two questions. One, what does it take to succeed militarily? And what political end state are you trying to achieve? In this case, we can succeed militarily using the Syrian Kurds, but the political end state is unacceptable. So we're at a collision course there, and Erdogan will talk to the president about that, but the president's got a lot to talk about with Erdogan, because why are you supporting the al-Qaeda in Syria? Why are your borders still open to ISIS between the Turkish and Syrian border? And why are you moving into the orbit of the Russian and the Iranians? So there's a lot on the table for this discussion. It's probably one of the most serious discussions he's had since he's been president.
So you think these are the answers that he's going to want today from Erdogan?
Yes, most definitely. Well, the president, I disagree with the U.S. policy here. The president's going to try to move Erdogan to support the United States arming the Syrian Kurds to take down Raqqa. And Erdogan, of course, is fundamentally opposed to that, Maria, because he sees that as a terrorist organization that's designed to occupy territory and eventually overthrow his government. Because he's got a major insurgency by the Kurds against his government.
Wow, that's going to be really one of the more important meetings that he's got with a foreign leader today. Let me switch gears, General, and ask you about Barack Obama. Former President Obama did an interview, and he said that it took, quote, the most political courage not to bomb Syria after the country repeatedly used chemical weapons. You know, a lot of people were critical of President Obama because he said, well, there's a red line, and they crossed the red line, and then the U.S. did nothing about it. He's saying, no. It was a lot of courage that I had not to bomb Syria. What are your thoughts on what he's saying this morning?
I think President Obama has always been paralyzed by the fear of adverse consequences. And the fear in Syria, in his mind, was, well, if I bombed them and took out Assad's air power, which is what he should have done, and it would have stopped the massive killing that he was doing with the use of that air power. He always felt that that would escalate, and therefore negative things would come as a result of it. It was his fear that was the obstacle, not his courage. We have 500,000 dead. We've got 11 million people out of a 22 million people population displaced out of their homes. We have massive genocide and war crimes being committed by the Syrians and by the Russians and the Iranians. And now, we didn't cause that problem, Maria, but the President Obama enabled that problem to get to the state that it's at. And he squandered the opportunities that we had to turn that situation around. At the end of the day, history will hold him accountable for this, and that's why he's pushing back on it so strongly.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that it's the opposite, that it took courage to strike Syria. when President Trump did it, and that's why he received really across-the-board support in terms of leaders around the world. But President Obama is saying, oh, no, that's not courage. It's courage not to bomb them. I didn't understand what point I guess he's just defending his legacy, bottom line, because he didn't do anything.
Yeah, he's reacting to what you just said, to the overwhelming support that his successor had, who I don't think he has much regard for, in doing something that he had the opportunity to do 4 years ago, and he passed on it. And he says it took courage. Nonsense. It was his fear. It was his fear that stopped him from doing it.
Yeah, with the fear.